who woke up really early. It's going to be a long day, and appreciate you guys being here. We like this to be really interactive, and so there's some different ways that you can be interactive. The room isn't too big to where you can't just give a shout out or heckle from your table. You can also, on the back of that orange piece of paper, there's a phone number that you can text Kevin Longerholm. If you want to text him any question, especially anonymous or a heckle, you can text it to him and he'll ask the question for you if you don't want to interrupt the flow. You can raise your hand, but we definitely want it to be interactive, and I'll try to pause as much as possible because as wordy as I like to be, and as awesome as I think my questions are, that's not really going to get the value that you want to take home. When I go to these types of conferences, I like to think if I can get 2 to 3 main takeaways, then this is a success for me, along with the networking and those things that happen. But if I can get 1 to 2 takeaways from each session along with that, then it's like a really big success. And I really want that for you because I think that will create the value to apply to your organization and make it worthwhile for you. When this conference is over, we'll send out surveys and we want to hear really what you thought about each session. Beat it up a little bit, give us some real feedback, tell us what sucked. We really want to know so that when we do this next year, it's even more valuable and can really be applied to your organization. Okay, masks and COVID stuff. In California, they've loosened up a lot, and I think most of you coming off the plane, you probably expected that you would have a mask glued to your face here in a blue state. It's not as rigorous, but we have masks out front for anyone who wants to wear it, and I think we can all have 100% respect for each other's outlook. And if you want to wear a mask, that's awesome, and I want to respect that. And if I'm talking to you and you put on a mask, I won't be offended. I was at the NIADA a few weeks ago, and I was talking to one of my colleagues who I know pretty well, but not super well, outside of one of the exhibiting areas, and he was talking so loudly right in my face, and there would be spit propellants just landing on me. You don't even feel it. I'm like, wow, that was a lot of spit. I felt it through my jacket. And I was taking these subtle steps back to, like, you know, the social cue of leaning back, and he wasn't picking up on it. He was just taking more steps forward and leaning in more and speaking louder. And finally, near the end, there was this one big drop, and I saw it coming through the air and it landed right on my lower lip. And as I was thinking about this conference, I thought, you know what? We should just talk about that because it's so okay if you want to take a step back from me or someone else, create a little space. We tried to make this a bigger room with higher ceilings so that you would feel more comfortable. So with that said, let's just accept that these are a little bit of crazy times and we can all be a little crazy and neurotic. Okay. So yeah, these are pretty crazy times. Like, they're crazy on the pandemic side, but from a macro perspective, this is really a wild time in history. This is the fastest technological advancements that we've seen so far, and it's only getting faster. I mean, I think how am I supposed to predict what's going to happen in 10 to 15 years from now with technology when I think back to 10 or 15 years ago and I had a Nokia phone and then upgraded to a BlackBerry, and now I can do anything that I want from my smartphone. I mean, it's really wild, the changes that have occurred. Things like digital currency. I don't know if you all know that one guy or gal who was a CrossFit advocate, and any chance that they had, they were like, CrossFit is the best. I know how it can help your glutes. You know, there was like always something that they would say about it. And now cryptocurrency is that new person. Can't get into a conversation without somebody bringing up how awesome Bitcoin is, and you got to invest, and maybe it's not Bitcoin, it's Litecoin or something else. And these different disruptors, innovative disruptors, are really taking hold. We don't really know where they're going to go. They're disruptive innovators that are totally negative, that are impacting us, like cyber attacks. We, 20 years ago, couldn't even fathom what those cyber attacks would be like. And today we almost kind of shrug our shoulders like, ah, there's another one. And I guess probably all my information is deep down in the dark web. And at some point, somebody's going to be using my credit and my credit score is going to drop, and that's just the world that we live in. So it's pretty nuts to think about those things. And all of these disruptive innovators are going to run into the auto space too. I don't know if any of you follow Tony Siva. He's a huge advocate, proponent, and predictor of autonomous electric vehicles. And the reason that he's such a huge proponent is more so on the economic side and scalability of it. He says that because the internal combustion engine has about 2,000 parts and is pretty difficult to manufacture compared to the electric motor that has about 200 parts to it and can run for 1 million miles versus several 100,000 miles, that in the near future, there's going to be this huge overlay of autonomous electric vehicles over just internal combustion engines in general. So maybe you're not into that, and that's not really, you don't see that as a threat. I can't pick up automotive news without seeing some new OEM predicting, 100% of our fleet is going to be electric vehicles by 2025. And somehow all those things are going to affect this space. Somehow, we just don't know when or exactly how that's going to happen. So yeah, we have all this big stuff happening from a macro perspective. Yeah, it's looking at the auto space. And then we're right in the middle of this pretty nuts pandemic still, and I don't think any of us could have predicted that we would have just massive gobs of government stimulus aid and have this perfect storm of inventory where the microchips in the factory shutting down are really making it challenging to get a hold of inventory or buy a new car or a used car. And it's really pretty wild on how these things are impacting us. And so maybe during this time, you had some of the best successes you've had as a dealer. You had your most profitable seasons, you had the best originations, you've gotten the most capital, and had the lowest rates, and the best performing portfolio in terms of delinquency. But there's also the pain points that are coming from that. Maybe you grew so much that scalability has some gaps in it now, and you need to backfill your management team, or because you have so many accounts, your collections team is starting to feel some of that pain, or your repo department or your service department. Maybe it's that you're at the top of your capital. You don't really know if you can get more capital. Or maybe it's your business model. You're really trying to decide how much focus am I going to put on retail or indirect, or buy here, pay here, or lease here, pay here, so that into the future I can have the most success. Because of all those things, that's why we wanted to put together the agenda that we did for this meeting. It's essentially the things that we were hearing from our dealers and prospects and strategic partners of all these challenges, and we want to be able to address those. And so again, as we're addressing them, want you to be interactive with that. There are notepads all over the place, and some of the best ways to learn are to actually write it down instead of just typing it in your phone. I fall into typing it into my phone all the time, but writing it down is one of the best ways to remember something. So I totally encourage you to do that. Okay, for the agenda. We have a pretty packed agenda today, and I wanted to end it a little bit early at 4 for two reasons. One, in case we're really having a good conversation and we want to overflow a little bit, and then also to give a little bit of a break to network before we go to dinner and network some more. One of the highlights at the end of the day is at 3 o'clock, I'm interviewing David Norton, who's the former Chief Operating Officer of American Car Center. And he grew over 6.5 years their stores from 6 to 68 and eventually had 200 employees reporting to him. I have a ton of questions for David that I already have my list going. I want to ask him. Once I get settled in, I'm going to avoid trying to ask all those questions myself and try to bring you guys in. Then we have dinner tonight. I can't remember if on your badges, there's 2 buses, one's leaving at 5:15 and one at 5:45. Did we put a time? Okay, somehow there's 2 buses leaving, one's at 5:15 and one's at 5:45 to take everybody to dinner. Somehow we gotta figure out how to get half of you on the first one and half of you on the second one. So let me circle back on that. But I want to make sure that everybody gets there without having to buy an expensive Uber that's going to circle around the block 7 times before it takes you up. So we have this great dinner tonight at Portside Pier. It's super cool. It's open air. It's right over the bay. The weather's going to be great. It's a really good food, so I'm really excited about that. And then tomorrow we have just a half day. We do breakfast in the morning, 3 sessions, a break in between, and then a to-go lunch that you can eat here at your tables if you like, or you can just take it to go. One of the highlights tomorrow is Dr. Lynn Reeser. She's a past chief economist of E of A's Auto Group, along with all of these other accolades. She rubs shoulders with Mick Mulvaney and Janet Yellen, and she's always in the know. She's also a 90-pound firecracker, and she will love to have some interaction from you guys as well. So I'm excited about all that. Okay, so this is a lease your pay here meeting. Let's just get on the same page for a second of lease your pay here. There's nothing outrageously different about lease your pay here. It's really an in-house financing product that has uniquely distinct features and benefits. There's always certain advantages that come to mind when I'm thinking about this or talking about this, but because we have a fair amount of dealers in here who are already doing lease your pay here, I'm curious. I want to start some of the interaction now, so we'll just do some shout outs. What are some of the advantages from a dealer's perspective of doing lease your pay here? Jeremy. Yes, so Jeremy said sales tax, pay-as-you-go sales tax in Arkansas, which is in 30 states or so in the United States, pay-as-you-go sales tax. And if you're in a state that has sales tax up front, there is the option to work with a law firm like Hudson Cook, where you can create a non-Reg M compliant lease that will make it more like a subscription, like a Fair.com situation. Which if you haven't heard about Fair.com, they have totally fallen apart and are focusing on their technology as a platform instead of doing the subscriptions. It's really just not fair. So what else? Tell us great here. Depreciation. So you're the owner, this is a depreciable asset on your books because of the 2018 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. You can do bonus depreciation of 100% of your inventory's expense within that period up until 2023, where it tapers down 20% per year thereafter. What that means is that you can use a lot of depreciation to offset your tax income liability. Thanks, Nick. What else? Yes, so as the owner, you're the lessor, you're the owner on the title. That gives you more collateral control. So that in the event of repossessions, you're the owner, it's so much easier to repossess. And for bankruptcy, in a bankruptcy situation, the judge says, are you going to pay this lessee or give up the vehicle? And they make a choice. There's no cram down or anything. What else?
Actually, that's the customer.
Did you say retention of the customer? Yes. That's such a huge one. I mean, do you really want to sell one car one time to one person? No, you want them to come back. You want the opportunity to sell them or lease them another vehicle another time, or really for their buying life. That's what you want. If you've been seen Shark Tank, that's what they say every time. You want customer retention. What else? Yeah, because you're the owner, you have more ability to have a repossession because you're not just a lien holder. It's more authority. Shorter term. That would be an advantage to both sides, you as the dealer and on the customer side. 44% of Americans can't afford an expense that's $400 or greater. So what does that mean as the vehicle gets older? It's more likely that it's going to have some sort of mechanical failure, and likely that they're going to have an expense that they can't afford, and then what's going to happen? They're likely going to stop paying. Shorter the term, probably, likely, they're going to have a little bit more foresight or ability to even say, you know what, I can actually make it through this term versus 48 months or 60 months or the 72 months. I can't do it. There's no way. It's never going to happen. What else? Anything else? Profitability. So one of the best things about a lease is that you can do a better car for a lower payment to your customer. And in so, you're moving your profitability more so towards the end. This is a balloon payment. And so as they're paying into the vehicle, you will then have the vehicle to increase your profitability at a later date, whether you're going to recycle it again or just do that residual buy-off. Is there anything else we're missing? Eric?
Better lending resource.
Better lending resource. Oh, Eric, that's a great little tee up. I appreciate that. That wasn't on my list, though. Anything else? Okay, let's see how we did. Just the ones that come to mind. Oh, program customization. So you get a lot of flexibility in your lease. And so when you're setting the buying price or the selling price, because there's a money factor in it that's not, it's under Reg M, not Reg Z. So there's not the same usury requirements or limitations. And because you might have an acquisition fee or something else in there, you really have the ability to get really aggressive with how you price your vehicle. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. But the program customization, you can also say, you know what, every lease that I put out is going to have a service contract or a warranty or some other reinsurance product because it's going to be in the base payment for everybody. And that's something unique that you just can't do unless you're doing leasing. So Clayton Christensen, author of Innovator's Dilemma, Innovator's DNA, Solution, all those innovator books, he has this great quote amongst so many, which is people don't want a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch hole. And I think so often, even us as a lender, we think about the quarter-inch drill. What are my features in my product? What is my widget that I'm selling versus the solution that it's actually providing? From a customer perspective, does your customer want to own the car? Is that what they really want? I don't know the answer to that question, but maybe it's that, just a guess, maybe it's that they would prefer to have a car that they like at a payment that they can afford. I don't know. From a customer perspective, we actually talked about each of these. A better car for lower payment, shorter term. Thank you, Dan. And then this last one, and I think this overcomes the buying objection pretty easily, is why wouldn't you test drive your vehicle for 36 months and then you can decide if you want to buy it again. If 44% of Americans can't afford an expense of $400 or greater, then what the heck is going to happen in their life over the next 36 to 72 months? They don't know. They might be in a way better position than they were before and they want to upgrade. Or they might be in a harder time and they need to downgrade. It's harder to see where you're at further than it is shorter. Okay, so a a lease your pay your dealer compared to a buy your pay your dealer, how different is it? I can't say exactly. Our dealers, this is the averages of the dealers who work with us. They have about 2 locations, about 2 owners, a little less, been in business about 7 years. Portfolio size is about 650 accounts with about 10 million in lease receivables, doing about 30 originations per month. And then the funding amount, this is a little bit of a nuanced number because we fund, so some of our dealers fund 80% of ACV, 90%, 100%, plus some reconditioning. So the actual ACV is likely a little bit higher, but this is the one of the benchmarks that we have. Compared to NIADA and subprime analytics, here's how our data compares to theirs. So on the down payment or cap cost reduction, ours is a little bit higher, commands a little bit higher down payment. The amount financed, this and the cash price are, again, a little bit nuanced because you can have that competitive advantage and you can set your price at Kelley Blue Book or under, and then offset that with your acquisition fee or a little bit higher money factor. That number is actually a higher ACV vehicle. You see at the bottom, the average model year is 2015, and so this is, we couldn't get this data from 5-year pay here, but that's my suspicion. On the weekly payment, it's really right in the middle, $94. That's pretty competitive. And then the big one that stands out is the term. 10 months fewer on average. And so when I think about this market and the inventory challenges that we're in, what levers do you have when your inventory is more costly to you? Well, if you're already doing a 43-month term, can you command a higher down payment, or do you push it out to 50 months, 60 months, 72 months? What are you going to do? Well, if your average is 33 months, it is a little bit easier to play with the term a little bit, 36, 39 months, 42 months. You have a wider range to be able to price when you need to. Okay, so is that the NIADA, like I said? And I don't know, who else was there? Raise your hand if you were there. Yes, so Michael Urban did this great talk, Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. And I never know what to expect when somebody who's a professional athlete is going to give a talk. How good is it really going to be? And so one of the things that we did that we often, we haven't done before, is that we sponsored a coffee break at the NIADA. And by happenstance, it was the one right before the keynote speaker. It was really cool. There were these little cups that said LHPH Capital on them with our logo. And so our team gets there and we go in early and I'm sitting off to the right front. And as I'm sitting there, I'm watching a couple hundred people come in, and a lot of them have these cups. And it was really cool. Sorry, this is just a side note. It was really cool. And as I was sitting there, I had one of those little moments, you know, when you're walking down memory lane in your mind, but you're watching things happen, but your brain is really in a different place. I was going through that and I was thinking back to how far we've come. When I joined here in 2017 as the third employee, and we had 3 dealers, and we didn't have a marketing budget or an advertising budget, and our website had 3 pages on it and looked like it came from 1997. And our financial statements were being sent to us, and I would avoid opening them because they were so upside down. And I was responsible for growing the business, so I really didn't want to open them to just be reminded of where we were at that time. So it was really cool to reflect and then think about how we can do a coffee break now. And we have a marketing budget and a full team, and I mean, we have some cool stuff going on. We're about to close this big syndicated bank deal so that we can have more capital to deploy to our current dealers and future dealers. And we were able to work with AFS dealers to build this custom loan management system that's a web-based that we have a programmer now who can continually try to improve it based off of what you guys are telling us. Hey, this sucks. Can you fix it? Yeah, I think we just better. That's a good point. So, sorry, that was my side note. So, Michael Irvin's talk was really good, getting 6 Ds to success. And I don't want to steal all of Michael's thunder, but I want to give him credit because the first one that stood out to me and really resonated the most, and that's what I want to end with, is make sure that you're called. Make sure that you're called. He's talking to all these auto dealers, and there is something really meaningful about what you all do. Whether you are aware of it or not, you're serving an underserved market and really helping change people's lives. That resonates with me, and I know I hear it from some of you that it resonates with you too. And I thought there was probably some great wisdom that Michael wasn't even aware of when he was saying that, because with his other C's, they could apply to all of us. Next one, make sure that you have the courage to overcome the naysayers. Challenge yourself every day so that you can be the best. Collaborate with your team. Compete at the highest level in your peers so that you can know where you're at and how you can keep climbing ahead. And celebrate the small and large victories. Those are great. Love that from Michael. So, when you're in your calling, according to Michael, you're in your element. You're guided by that. It's your true north. It helps you make your decisions when you aren't sure exactly what to do. It permeates out of you because it's so intense. If you're really in tune with it, and not everybody's always in tune with their calling. You can get stuck at different times, and many of you might be stuck right now. What am I going to do with this arduous time? This time where there really are some challenges, and we don't know what's to come and how that's going to impact us. So another Clayton Christensen quote. I promise I'm not like a walking fan of his, but it just resonates with this talk. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. Several years ago, I was talking with Joe Seagrave. Wait, that's too obvious. Joe S. And Joe, I called up Joe to ask him, hey, can you share a meaningful story with me? I want to share it with our team before a quarter business review. And without skipping a beat, Joe said, oh my gosh, man, this story is both awful and great. This mom who leased a car, her son was skateboarding in a car park, and he slipped and fell into a door that had a glass inset. He slipped through it, and he got cut up really bad, and he died. I mean, it's just one of those stories that's so awful to hear. So the dealership calls up the mom because she's late on her payment. She tells them what's going on. They say, oh my gosh, just hang on, let's talk to our owner and see what we can do. So they call up Joe, and Joe says, give me your number, I want to talk to her. And he calls her up and says, look, this is awful, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. For now, don't even think about it, don't even worry about it. Your payment's waived. Just focus on what you need to do, and at some point you'll be back on track. But do this for me. Call me every time that your payments due so I can check in and see how you're doing. So this happens, and it actually takes 6 months long. And the result of this wasn't that Joe was taken advantage of in this situation. The result was two things. Joe was able to do this because he could. He had the ability to because he had a good operation. And the second reason is because he loved what he was doing. And because of that, the mom was so grateful for the assistance that she became a really big advocate them, what they were doing, who they were, and a long-time customer. And that's not something that you can always do. That's not the sort of situation that always happens. But I think that it really points out the space that you all are in and the worthiness of that calling. This calling in this space, it starts with you all as leaders, and it sets the tone and the culture of your organization. And I commend each of you for what you're doing in this space. It really is meaningful. I think we're wholeheartedly connected to this, and we want to contribute as best we can to what you're doing to continue to serve the underserved. Okay.